All right, welcome everybody. Wonderful to see all of you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all of you for coming. I'm really excited about this. I am Lisa Hart. I'm on the board of the Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance. And if I forget, I will ask, I hope Muriel or Charles, you can remind me to ask you to introduce yourselves in a moment. And if you're not one of the candidates, well, even the candidates are welcome to do this. Please you can enter into the chat your name, your neighborhood council or your organization, and what brought you here today. And feel free to modify your Zoom names with your organization. Of course, you can include your pronouns if you would like to. Our mission is to advance sustainability and resilience across LA through advocacy, sharing of best practices, and community action. And of course, tonight is very much about the advocacy part as well as community action and sharing of best practices. We have several active committees and a working group, and we'll hear reports from most of these folks at the end of tonight. And all of these are open to all of our, any stakeholder in LA is welcome to join any of these. And this is where a lot of the work actually gets done and where we actually have, I'm going to say usually a lot of fun. People wouldn't be coming, I don't think, if it weren't at least a little fun. Okay, we are recording tonight and we will post this on our YouTube channel. Please go ahead and introduce yourselves, as we said, and we're not gonna have, normally we have group participation. We're a very informal group, but because of the nature, we have 7 candidates tonight. So we're actually going to keep it limited to the questions that people submitted in advance, which we really pulled from tonight. We do have community agreements that one of us will put in the chat, and we ask everybody, including the candidates, to follow them. And we will, if we see you not following them, we will probably give you a little heads up, and then we will kick you out if you don't follow them. I will also put a link to an evaluation in the chat. I hope I remember to do that a few times. That is something that's super, super helpful for us to get that information. We like finding out what you like about this and what you don't like about this. And we do try to make it, we do try to make it worth people's time. Okay. Tonight, we're really focusing on the CD6 candidate forum. If we have time, we might have a conversation among neighborhood council folks, among representatives. If not, we won't. We'll see how this goes. And then, of course, we'll have our committee reports, as I mentioned, and our announcements. And once again, we'll ask you to submit evaluations. These are our community agreements. If you can have your camera on, that's super helpful. It's nice to see people's faces so we can build community. I know not everybody can, but it's nice if you can. Assume good intent, give people the benefit of the doubt, demonstrate respect and appreciation. Once again, this goes for the candidates as well as everybody listening today. Refrain from having too many side conversations in the chat. We love the chat, but please be on point when you're using it. Listen, and then step forward and then step back, meaning contribute and let others do the same. Be concise. It's not a strength of mine, but we all have our own journeys in life. And of course, once again, have fun. Okay. So a few other things I wanted to be sure to mention. One, I hope a lot of people who are outside, I hope a lot of people from CD6 are here, but I also hope a lot of people from outside CD6 are here because this matters to everybody in LA and beyond, whether or not you live in CD6. Another thing I should say is that this is an experiment because it's true, the Oscars, oh, Chris is here. Oh, and it's reminding me that I should stop myself and I should ask the board members to introduce themselves. This is the part I always forget. Chris, who has COVID, just learned. Chris, could you go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Christopher Huja. I am a board member and a board member of the Tarzan Neighborhood Council. And it's great to see everybody here tonight. And COVID's no joke, but we'll be okay.
My parents just got it. It's been quite a crazy ride.
Yeah.
Muriel, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. And I'm so sorry, Chris. I feel so bad. So I am a steering NCSA board member, formerly Echo Park Neighborhood Council. I'm also the chair of the Transportation Committee.
Thank you. And Charles.
Hey guys, once again, Charles Miller here on the NCSA board. I'm also involved with the Advocacy Committee and the Trees Committee. I live in the CD5 neighborhood of Palms, where I'm involved with the Green Committee there, and I'm also the chair of Los Angeles Climate Reality Project, and really looking forward to hearing everybody this evening.
Thank you. So a couple of things I want to mention about tonight. One, where our focus is on sustainability, but we do think of that very broadly. So everything's connected, right? The way people talk about sustainability is this very systems-based approach. So how we're doing socially, how we're doing economically is connected. I just wanted to say that. Also wanted to thank all the people who submitted questions. We are not, I don't think we're going to have time to use all of them, but they were really helpful in us putting together what we're going to discuss tonight. So thank you. And I think lastly, I wanted to be sure to thank the candidates for running. I know this is an unusual election. You folks didn't see this one coming, or maybe you did. I sure didn't see this one coming. So I'm so excited that so many of you stepped up, and I know only one of you will end up being the representative for CD6, but I'm so excited that there's so much engagement. And so I just want to say thank you. And then I want to hand it over super briefly to Lionel, who is I'm not in CD6, I'm in Silver Lake. But I wanted, Lionel is one of our representatives and he is in CD6. So Lionel, I was hoping you could say a word or two, and then I'll hand it over to Kathy.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lionel Mares. I'm a board member with the Sun Valley Area Neighborhood Council. I'm also a assigned rep for NCSA, and I'm also involved with the LA City Bicycle Advisory Committee. And I'm also been politically engaged with other committees across the city of LA, such as the Griffith Park Advisory Committee, and look forward to hearing from you all. Thank you for coming all. Thank you.
Thank you, Lionel. Okay, now I'm going to hand it over to Kathy. I'm realizing we have a real infiltration, if that's the right word, of climate reality folks this evening. Kathy is with Climate Reality San Fernando Valley. She's the legislative coordinator there. She also is a former representative, depending on how you think about it, from the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council to the NCSA, and she's on the leadership team for an organization that I need to learn about, Climate Action California. So I'm going to hand it over to Kathy, who's going to moderate tonight. We thought it would be really great to have somebody who's in the Valley, and she is. So she's going to take over. And what I'm going to do is spotlight Kathy and me and the candidates. And then when we're all, I guess, spotlit, we can, and when you've gone through your introductory remarks, Kathy, we can get started. So Kathy, are you ready?
You want me to start? Okay.
I do.
Great. Perfect. Okay. Thank you to the candidates and for everybody else to be here tonight. We are really looking forward to an interesting and informative conversation. We will use the typical Q&A format with timed responses. Please keep your responses to 1 minute or less. I may ask a follow-up or clarifying question to a particular response. You'll also be able to rebut and or ask follow-up or clarifying questions to each other at my discretion. So please just ask me if you'd like to do that. We will rotate the order of speakers for each question, starting alphabetically. I am not sure that Marissa is here.
Yeah, and I need to make sure that everybody is spotlit first, so bear with me while I do that. I don't know if she's here either. That's the challenge if
spotlighting?
So Marissa, no, that's why I asked people to get here at 6:25. So Marissa or Rose, if you're here, let us know. And then I will, so bear with me, I have a few other folks. Okay, there's Imelda. There's Douglas. Okay, so I don't think Marissa or Rose is here. I've spotlit. I think, do I have everybody? I'm missing one person. Where did I go?
Isaac
Oh,
and
no, my
Melvin.
spotlight. That's a problem.
I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're good.
Okay, so
Great.
I just have to spotlight myself because I did spotlight myself, but I somehow got unspotlit because we need, yes, you need to see my, sorry, where did I go? There I am. See my camera. Okay, I
Got
think
it.
we're ready.
Great.
And this is actually, if we have a smaller group, it will actually might work more smoothly. So
Right.
this works.
Okay, so we will start with Isaac. And in less than a minute, each of you please introduce yourselves, tell us why you are running and what sets you apart from the other candidates. Isaac, unmute yourself, please.
Yep, there we go.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much, NCSA, for having us and for organizing this. My name is Isaac Kim. It's great to meet everyone. Some of you might know that I am doing this for the first time, that I'm a small business owner. I own a purpose-driven company called Pilot Men's Grooming and Skincare. We do what we can to help people experiencing homelessness, first in East LA. My wife and I live here in Van Nuys. We planted our roots here. We know and love our neighbors. And just as someone who hasn't been in the political world, I think a lot of us think that normal people have to run and genuinely care. I don't know anything to anyone other than the people of CD6 and my neighbors. And I find it hard to believe that we can't do more to improve the quality of life for everyone living here. And I want to bring a different perspective and a can-do attitude to the position. Thank you.
Thank you. Marco, I'm sorry, Imelda.
Okay, I started to stop. Okay, sorry, let me start again. Okay.
Unmute,
Oh,
please.
Imelda, you're muted. I'll start you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be here. I am a candidate who is running because I want to do everything in my power to make sure that our region is clean, safe, and is well representative in City Hall with somebody that is outcome driven and has experience in working in local government from when I was at the youth council as a child, the neighborhood council in my early 20s. And I've worked for the city and I've worked for the county. And what's different from me than my opponents is that I am by default an environmental justice fighter. I am ready to go to City Hall to continue the work that I did in my early 20s when I worked at Pacoima Beautiful, and I ran the youth program and the adult program where I work with kids to create environmental fighters for the future. And I helped some of our older adults learn about the planning process so that they themselves can be advocates and involved in the environmental justice fight.
Thank you. Okay.
Great. And Rose has joined us. Charles, could you spotlight her, please? I can't multitask more than I am. So Rose will give you an opportunity to join in a minute. Thank you for putting that in the chat. Go ahead, Kathy, sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Marco.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. My name is Marco Santana. As you all know, I'm running for city council. This district is my home. It's where I've grown up, where I've spent my entire life, and where I've spent my entire adult career working. You know, having worked in government, working on constituent services, having worked for the last 5+ years to make sure that we house our unhoused and connect them to the proper resources that they need. And it's a district where I've continued to find ways to give back, sitting on the board of a couple of different nonprofits like the YMCA in Van Nuys, and sitting on the board as an officer of the Democratic Party for the San Fernando Valley Young Democrats. I'm proud to say that I'm the candidate that was co-endorsed with a colleague of mine by Streets for All and also by the League of Conservation Voters. And I'm ready to take the action, the plans that I have to better our community and better our environment to work for all of you through the various coalitions that I built. Thanks.
Thank you. Antoinette.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really good to see and speak with you, Kathy. Isn't this a delight? My name is Antoinette Scully. My pronouns are she and they interchangeably. And I am running, and what sets me apart from the other people who are running in this race right now is actually I am a frontline activist. And so when we talk about environmental justice and sustainability, that comes straight from my work as a frontline worker. That is protesting the Sun Valley gas plant. That is traveling to Line 3 in Minnesota to help facilitate the protests there and the frontline work that they're doing or we're doing to stop their pipeline, right? A lot of this work that I have access to is making sure the most marginalized voices are heard. And that's why I'm in this race. It was a surprise to me, Kathy, I will say, but most of that is so that I can continue to be a voice for those who are left out of the conversation, and I'm happy to be with you tonight.
Great, thank you. Douglas.
Oh, Douglas, you said sorry. I thought you said God bless.
Hi, everyone. My name is Douglas Sierra. Thank you for having me. So I was born and raised in the Valley, and so my growing up has been influenced me a lot. I think particularly is growing up in Sun Valley. I mean, I see it every day. We live in, Sun Valley is probably one of the worst environmental injustices that's happening to LA and the community. And it's very how the city of LA treats our neighborhood and the district as a whole. There's nobody enough to advocate for our communities, particularly our communities of color that have not enough advocacy. And I'm running not as a politician, I'm running as a father who's raising their kids in the Valley and wants the, for environmental reasons, wants the best for them. So yeah, I want to bring change. I bring, what sets me apart is, again, I'm not a politician, and I'm the only candidate that has both nonprofit experience in direct services, but I also have corporate experience in the worlds of finance, supply chain, and operations, and I can integrate all those skills to lead the city.
Hey, thank you. And Rose.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today and all of us. I'm a woman immigrant who came to this country a decade ago. I was alone, no friends, no family here, but a diverse city with a lot of opportunities like Los Angeles gave me so much that I feel that is the right time right now to give it back. So I'm a woman entrepreneur. I own 2 businesses. I have worked for a local Armenian American television station for many years as a journalist and reporter. I had an opportunity to dive into different social issues. And also during the coronavirus, I worked with a lot of governmental institutions, EDD, SBA, DPSS, housing departments on city level and state level, also on LA County. I worked with Los Angeles County Mental Health Department for more than 5 years by doing a lot of—
Sorry, Rose.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. How long do we have? Like a minute?
Sorry, 1 minute. We're trying to keep to 1 minute or less.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, starting with our next question, we'll go first to Imelda. And the question is, what is your vision of a sustainable Los Angeles? Imelda.
So my vision of a sustainable Los Angeles would be that we invest in our critical infrastructure to properly make all of our electrical grid, to invest in greener technologies such as solar, wind. I mean, there's a whole host of things. But in addition to just cleaning up our generating plants, I want to see that we invest in the infrastructure for more people to be willing to purchase electrical cars. And I also, one of the things that I think we don't talk about is that we need to make sure that our critical infrastructure departments also invest in groundwater recharge. I think it's inappropriate that every time there's a rainy day, Los Angeles just kind of goes to sleep. Our trees fall, Our roads are unusable. We need to do more to make sure that that water goes into the groundwater, so we don't have to go through droughts anymore.
Okay, thank you. And Marco, again, what is your vision of a sustainable Los Angeles?
Awesome. Thanks, Kathy. I think a sustainable Los Angeles consists of a few things. One of them is making sure that we expand on the transit system that we have. We have such high amount of single occupancy vehicles because our transit infrastructure is not there, right? Specifically in the San Fernando Valley. And so we have some amazing projects that we're going to have. How can we push to make sure that we're developing transit-oriented communities along those lines? Because we know from a recent study at UC Berkeley that we have close to 930,000 tons of emissions that would be reduced if we have more transit-oriented communities. I agree on a few parts. We need to expand our microgrid system across the city of Los Angeles, turn all of the city's vehicles into electric fleets. We need to expand the greenery that we have here. We see a direct correlation with more green and more natural green in our society and more kind of peaceful societies. And we need to make sure that we have stormwater captured. Sorry, that's my puppy. We need to have that, we have more stormwater capture in our system as well.
Great. Thank you, Marco. Antoinette.
For me, a sustainable Los Angeles is where everyone has access. And that includes transit, that includes the groundwater system, that includes being able to afford a house here or a place to live. All of these are sort of intertwined as a holistic idea of everyone being able to participate in our society at the best of their ability, whether that's the city subsidizing certain things like they're doing with the first home buyers program, whether that's the city subsidizing things like the JEDI programs, whether that is cleaning the Superfund site at the Tujunga Spreading Grounds. All of those are sort of ways in which that we can make sure that everyone has equal access. That's what sustainability really means to me.
Thank you. Douglas.
So I'll touch on, yes, the big picture, the mass transit we're coming, and obviously the big water retention, such as the Pobra Basin and my hometown of Sun Valley. But I think we need to go further than that. And part of it is, I look at LAUSD schools. Our schools are super hot. We're in micro deserts. I don't think you people in LA realize how hot the valley gets in the summer. And unfortunately, my kids can't play for months at a time because it's all blacktops LAUSD school. So I want to invest in more greenery LAUSD school. But honestly, part of it is it's more frustration. I'm tired of the city always never prioritizing the valley, and we're always left second or third fiddle. So I'm here to fight back and actually advocate for my community and make sure that we have some, like Bologna wetlands. We have some of that in our communities because, again, we always seem to get left behind.
Great. Thank you. Rose.
As a candidate for LA City, my vision for sustainable Los Angeles would involve several key initiatives, such as promoting renewable energy, encouraging sustainable transportation, reducing waste, preserving natural resources, and most importantly for me is the way of thinking that everybody have the equal opportunities in the society regarding the affordable housing to stay housed. And as I said, to have equal opportunities as everybody else in the society.
Okay. And Isaac.
Thank you so much. And this is such a crucial time for climate. I mean, when I was in middle school, we were learning about this, and I'm surprised more hasn't been done. But a sustainable future for LA or even our state or country or the world is not just electric cars. That's great, and that has its benefits, but it also comes with its other environmental harms as well. But regardless of that, we still need more charging stations if we are going to have electric cars. But the future is really, in terms of sustainability, we need to really expand and make our public transportation more sustainable, but also more accessible and attractive to ride for users, because that's really going to make a huge dent. We need to attack this situation on all fronts, not just transportation, whether that's capturing stormwaters, whether that's taking the super funds and detoxifying and turning them to green spaces, planting more trees. I know it sounds silly, but I've been saying it for, since the beginning. And we need to attack it on so many different fronts and actually get it done at this time now.
Okay. And moving on to the next question. And we will start with Marco. The question is, how would you address the lack of trust in city government, and how would you work toward gaining the trust of the residents in CD6?
Thanks, Kathy. So this is an important question. It's the whole reason we have this race, right? And I think it's part of the reason why our neighborhood council system is here. We know that city government has not been responsive to us for decades, right? In the San Fernando Valley specifically, we fought to secede from the city of Los Angeles, and that's what ultimately created the neighborhood council system. And so we have to have leaders that are always willing to be humble and to listen. And one of the things that I've proposed, throughout this campaign is starting by making sure that we have city government back in the communities, right? Making sure that myself as a council member, I'm actually taking meetings in Van Nuys City Hall, making sure that we're hosting city council meetings, not just in Van Nuys City Hall and across the city of Los Angeles, but outside of regular work hours, so that hardworking folks like my parents have the chance to actually go and make their voices heard. And so I plan on doing that. I plan to be in my district. You'll always see me here eating, going to restaurants, going to local coffee shops, and so on. Sorry, my time is up.
Okay. And Antoinette, how would you address the lack of trust in city government and specifically work toward gaining the trust of residents in CD6?
Yeah, I think one of the major problems that we're having that is pretty blatant with the tapes that were released is the racism, anti-Blackness, homophobia that's coming straight out of City Hall. And so there's a couple of things you can do. One of the first things you can do, right, is elect someone who is different and someone who can work towards healing some of that. One of the reasons why I'm running is because I'm a racial justice educator, and part of my work is to make sure that spaces are inclusive, whether that's in person, online, community spaces, third spaces. All of this is to make sure that people feel like they have a home who are outside of their home. And so for me, rebuilding that trust is electing people who are in the community, electing people who know what's going on, who are focused on actually fixing and solving some of the problems and not concerned with throwing away your vote because they are bought and paid for by the establishment or special interests. That's how you get the trust back into the city.
Thank you. Douglas.
Sorry. So again, I believe City Hall is a mess. I think it goes back to that saying, who watches the watchman? And I think we need that in City Hall. Again, the tapes were abhorrent. That's probably the main reason I decided to run. We need full lobbying reform. The city council has been advocating for lobbying reforms. And I know that certain council members want to make exceptions to certain and carve out that. I'm totally against that. And I would not vote for any exceptions or on a very limited basis. And just the ethics commission. The ethics commission is supposed to watch over the city council members. And you see how they're like a hawk to the neighborhood councils, but somehow city council is exempted. So I would actually empower the ethics commission so that give them teeth to actually enforce some of the rules that seems like city council is above. And just again, hold leaders accountable. Besides that, after the tape scandals, we've seen like this week 2 more scandals with a council member in the AIDS Foundation. Like these kind of things need to stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. And Rose?
It is very important to engage community in everything that people sitting in the city hall are initiating. I think that transparency and accountability comes with engagement. If we have a lot more oversight committees in different departments, if we ourselves as council member are engaged in community do town halls, invite people, unions, and everybody in the community to participate in whatever is going on and to listen to them. The main part is to listen to the people and to be accountable, to show them also budget-wise what is going on inside the city hall, to build and rebuild the trust.
Great, thank you. If anybody ever needs a question repeated, just let me know. Some of these get a little long. Isaac.
One of the 3 pillars the platform has been from the beginning to regain the trust of our community. It's one of the reasons I'm running. I think a lot of people, normal residents, people who live in our district, our city, are tired of the same type of people being elected and nothing getting done. This is huge. So in terms of regaining the trust of our community, we need to start by getting the small things done right. Whether that's even, something as, abandoned cars on your street, just responsive city services. But more importantly, it's about transparency, accountability, and accessibility. That's why from the beginning, I've committed to after hours, whether it's an open house or virtual town hall, where people can really just talk to me like a real normal human being, and address their problems, their issues. And from there, it's on me, and I'll address it honestly. If I don't know at that time, I'll tell them I don't know, but we'll look into it. We'll work on it as quickly as possible and provide updates. I think we need that at this point right now. It's the reason why I'm running.
Thank you, Isaac. And Imelda.
Okay, wonderful. So, one of the beautiful things about being a community organizer, and I've been a community organizer for over 15 years, is not just that we get to build coalitions, where I fought for environmental justice or built a youth leadership conference or, pushed for cleanup, green up. One of the things that's a beauty thing, best part about it is that we are not afraid to have difficult conversations with groups that come from different perspectives. So what I want to do is hold town halls and focus groups and create the space for our community to come together and talk about how this event hurt us and how we can grow from it and make sure that never happens again. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it's something that I have experience in doing, and I'm ready to get it going because we have to engage, we have to be accessible, we have to heal and show that Los Angeles is better than this.
Okay, thank you. We will start the next question with Antoinette. And the question is, what have you personally done to advance sustainability in Los Angeles or elsewhere?
Okay, so like I said earlier, I do most of my work is on the ground. So hosting weekly protests in 2020 so that we could get the Sun Valley generating station shut down. That was in conjunction with Angelica Dueñas. Some of the other things that I do that are a little bit more sustainable are, composting at home, riding my bike, taking public transit, talking a lot about taking public transit so that I can get other people to take it. Goodness gracious. I mean, it feels more like it's not just doing the things, right, but being a model so that people see how easy it is. And I think that when people see that it's really easy to take public transit, I mean, I have my Tap card on my watch, and so it's always on me. It's the kind of thing where we can talk about it and say, I eat locally and I go to restaurants that are right around the corner. And that kind of inspires other people to take on those more sustainable things.
Great, thank you. Douglas?
Just a second, I have to do something, sorry. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Douglas. What have you personally done to advance sustainability? Sorry, Lisa. You're muted, sorry.
Sorry. I'll start when I was in undergrad. I was part of the recycling center. So what we did there is that we informed the students about the benefits of recycling, showed them why it's important, the difference between collecting aluminums and so forth. But I'll speak to my most recent experience in graduate school. I was part of the startup ecosystem. And we worked on I advised many startups that were student-led, and one of them had to do with how do you reduce the environmental footprint of all the packages, like the Amazon packages and all the cardboard that gets wasted. So from there, we worked with a lot of incubators and see how we can reduce the carbon footprint of last mile delivery. And so those are the kind of the innovations that I want to bring to the City 6, because it seems like government and innovation are like oxymorons.
Okay, Rose.
During the last 3 years, I dedicated a few hours from my day to volunteer for the community. That included providing them with the assistance resources, especially during the hard times of coronavirus, to learn what kind of resources were available, especially for vulnerable people, for seniors, and for families, especially immigrant families with kids. Also, I got engaged myself on the social platform by teaching people about the laws and the regulations around the city, especially the housing sector and the eviction moratorium. So I tried to fill the gap of being underinformed for the community.
Okay, Isaac.
Personally, my wife and I, this rain this season has been great. Whoops. But we have a 100-gallon water capture tank that we put, on our drainage system. And so we have a ton of water right now, which is great. Growing up, and I don't want to take any personal credit for this, but this is how I grew up. My parents had their business in CD6, right in Van Nuys, called California Water Conservation Company. And they had the foresight, 30 years ago to know that we needed to save water. And their company is responsible, especially while I was running, and the numbers might be different now, but for more than 1.5 billion gallons a year of water saved, mainly through more water efficient toilets. That's just how I grew up. They were way ahead of the game. I was wearing, recycled plastic shirts when it wasn't cool. And they always thought that Jimmy Carter was the best president. So that's what I've been told since I was young. So it's a huge part of my life.
Thank you, Isaac. Imelda.
So my activism towards environmental justice and sustainability started when I was in high school. One of the first things that I got involved with was organizing students from Polytechnic High School to keep waste management from getting a permit that would allow them to grow the trash mountain up 90 feet into the air. Instead, the community pushed to make it a recycling transfer center, and now it creates tons of jobs and one of the #1 recycling facilities in the country. And then I also protested the DWP plant when we found out that there was methane gas leak there. I got the business community to support Cleanup Green Up, which made Sun Valley, Pacoima, Boyle Heights, and Wilmington considered green zones. I've also pushed during the my neighborhood council era to clean up the Sun Valley Superfund site. I'm an expert in California natives. I love them and I promote California natives in everything that I do. And more than anything, I'm just excited that ever since I decided to run for office, everyone is talking about water recharge. It wasn't that popular much long ago.
Thank you. Marco.
Awesome, thank you. So some of the things I've done is on my own personal, I've gone to provide public comment at Wyman Airport and how we plan to re-envision that. That's obviously something that's low-hanging fruit, right? We all can just dial in and do that. But I'm glad to say that I've done it. I've pushed on my own personal capacity as well. I pushed to advance smart policies such as SB 260, which fought to push back oil setbacks, as well as SB 1173, which fought to divest CalPERS from big oil. And I also fought to make sure that we pass, it didn't, but in this last cycle, Proposition 30, which would have set a whole new wave of green tech jobs and more green infrastructure in our society. On my own personal level as well, back when it wasn't cool in 2015, 14, 15, I had an electric pedal assist bicycle, and then I went to get, before Teslas came out, an electric car, which I leased for 3 years, and then transitioned to, again, just using public transit.
Great, thank you. Okay, and our next question, we'll start with Douglas. This is a little bit longer, so I'm happy to repeat it for anybody who would like it repeated. How familiar are you with the upcoming East San Fernando Valley Light Rail system to be constructed along Van Nuys Boulevard? What measures would your office take to ensure that this system enhances the way of living in CD6? Douglas.
Yeah, so I'm very familiar with the project. I'm glad that this is one of the few times where our community hasn't been able to benefit from federal and state dollars. And for me, the East Valley train station combined with the Sepulveda line gives the CD6 an opportunity of a generation to really invest in green, and not only when it comes to green, but at the intersection of green and housing. So one thing that I'm planning to do is that the abandoned Van Nuys corridor, which has been neglected for years up to Panorama City, where you see like the Montgomery Ward has been empty for 20 years, these lots gives us the opportunity to build sustainable mass transit at high density. And this is something that everyone wants in all the communities. This is where it makes sense to build density. And so I want to make it as easy as it can to prevent the red tape from City Hall to do that. And so that's one of the things that I'm passionate about.
Great, thank you. Rose, how familiar are you with the upcoming East San Fernando Valley Light Rail system to be constructed along Van Nuys Boulevard? And what measures will your office take to ensure that this system enhances the way of living in CD6? I'm sorry, Rose, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you. So yes, I'm very well familiar with the project. This is one of the, I would say, most important steps that is coming to the life of the San Fernando Valley, because it will not only connect different parts of the area, but also will give the opportunity to use the funds. But for me, if I am elected, I will take care not only to build this, I'm sorry. Hi, do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay. Okay, so I'll take care of not only the system to be set up, but also to maintain the system, because it will be very important for people not only to have the system, but also to know how to use the system. So it will be very important to teach people about the transit, about the routes, and to teach them also and to encourage public to use the public transit. That will be very important for San Fernando Valley.
Okay. Isaac.
To be totally honest, 5-6 months ago, I didn't know too much about the East Valley Light Rail, other than that my wife and I were excited for it to come to our community as residents of Van Nuys, who live pretty close to Van Nuys Boulevard. But you know, since the past 5 months of running, I've been really educated, been studying up on it a lot. I'm not pretending to be an expert, but what I know is that this is very exciting. It's great for our community. It's the future. It's what we need to do, and we're going to have regretted not doing it even sooner. We need to, while it's being built and while they're going through all of that effort and construction, we need to also remember and keep them accountable and make sure that we have things like bike lanes next to it, or thinking about the first and last mile situations of the public transit so that we can maximize the accessibility, the use, and the attractiveness of this light rail to get the most people in our communities, in our district, to really utilize it to its fullest potential.
Thank you. Okay, Imelda.
Yes, I'm actually very familiar with it. Back in 2010, when Metro first started having conversations about this, I am someone who actually mobilized between 100 and 200 people from Panorama City, Arleta, and Pacoima to come and voice what sort of train they wanted. There could have potentially been a bus, but we fought to make sure that it was light rail. And if I'm granted the opportunity to serve as council member, I want to make sure that we add amenities such as seating, lights, green space, water fountain, a bike rail, and that it's walkable. Los Angeles is aging. In the next 10 years, 25% of our population will be over the age of 55. And I want to make sure that those residents feel like this is a place where they can also just go and hang out and people watch, and also feel safe so that they can sit and, you know, use rail to go to other parts of Los Angeles. So yes, very familiar.
Thank you. Marco.
Thanks. Yeah, very similarly, I rallied students from CSUN as well and the community to fight for Measure M and to make sure we had the right transit lines that came through. One of the things that was being forgotten throughout the project itself, right, not just for the East San Fernando Valley Transit Line, is that when I was at CSUN, I was a student advisor, and I had countless students say that they had to leave class early because the Nordhoff bus wasn't timed with their class schedule. So we fought to make sure that it actually aligned with the needs of our people and that we had more transit across the city. In addition to that, one of the things that I think has to be spoken about is, as we talk about sustainability, is making sure that our small businesses are kept and are sustainable throughout this process, right? Throughout the development of this. I'm a board member at a small business advocacy nonprofit. We've been doing a lot of work with the community to make sure that their voice is heard in the public comment that is being had. We need to make sure that we also have safer and more walkable communities, right? That has to be a part of the conversation.
Mhm. Can I ask a follow-up question there? How would you encourage those small businesses to take care of their neighborhood, to get out and help make it look great?
Yeah, that's an amazing aspect of it, right? Like, as we discuss the more walkable communities, we have to look at different partnerships, right? In downtown Los Angeles, there's a LA Downtown Business Development District, and they partner with nonprofits and with the local businesses to make sure that they have folks, for example, folks that are formerly homeless, that are looking for employment, to make sure that they're cleaning, have jobs cleaning up the sidewalks and so on. There's a lot of small businesses like Tres Hermanos and Van Nuys, which does their own beautification in front of their area, right? They make sure they clean up their sidewalks. And so how can we make sure that we're partnering with these small businesses to make sure that they're doing projects like this, but also that they have the ability to attend these public comments, as I was saying, and make their voices heard to figure out what that timeline should look like.
Thank you. Antoinette.
Yes, I would love it if you repeat the whole question again.
I would be happy to. How familiar are you with the upcoming East San Fernando Valley Light Rail system to be constructed along Van Nuys Boulevard? What measures would your office take to ensure that this system enhances the way of living in CD6?
Yeah, so very familiar as a transit writer, as someone who's been paying attention to where this is going to connect to current transit that I already use and how I'll be able to get around a little bit easier. For me, all this does come back, and Imelda touched on it and Marco touched on it, is really those connections in the community, right? It's lovely when you can have collaboration between small organizations and local businesses because they are on the ground and know exactly what's needed and what's happening. And so when you partner with them, whether it is beautification, whether it is making sure that people are educated well enough to know where the stops are, and taking time with the different city officials, those are the kinds of things that my office would continue to do, is to make sure that people know how to use the product, which would be the transit ride, making sure that it is well lit, making sure that it has bus stops and bike lanes, and making sure that people, even as Imelda said, that it's walkable, right? That it's ADA approved walkable so that people can get around easily, because those are the things that we're missing in many parts of the district.
And how would you actually put together a program to teach people to use the system? Because I think that's hugely important, but it's all in the nuts and bolts, and that's really tricky.
Yeah. So it's really great the way that the Metro Ambassador program has been rolled out so that people have access to people on the trains. I think that having those same ambassadors at different stops so that when people are there, people know how to use the machines. I think actually that the machines should be removed because fares should be free. I think that that also would make it a lot easier for people to get and use the train. Some people say attractive, but I think that those are the kinds of measures that we can put in place where Metro already has ambassadors that they're rolling out so that people have this educational piece to it. And I think that would be a really good way to partner with Metro as part of the district.
So as a question for anybody who, how do you encourage people who have never seen the inside of a bus get on the bus? Imelda.
I think one of the things we need to do is show them the potential of the kind of places that you can visit if you were to take public transit. I remember being 14 years old and my sister telling me, "You're old enough to ride the bus. I'm not going to drive you around everywhere." Right. And then when I finally started to use the 152 and the 94, and I really saw that I can actually take the 94 all the way to downtown, that's when I fell in love with it. So I bring up my own personal story as an example of why I'm also somebody that believes that we need to make transit free. And I think that we should start with making it free for high school students so that we can create a whole new generation of Angelinos that know that it's an amenity that if you make yourself well versed in it, you can actually explore all of Los Angeles at a much less expensive price than, being 20 years old and being eager to buy yourself your first car when you already have a transit system that gets you around.
Thank you, Imelda. Thanks. And we are on to the next question, correct?
Douglas was raising his hand.
Oh, sorry, Douglas, go ahead. Can I just, I would love to have you add to this, but the point I'm trying to make is that there are people who don't even know that Metro exists in this city. They have been in their car their entire life. How are you going to reach out to those people who don't even know there's a subway in the city? Because there are a lot of people, or they kind of know where it is and have thought about it. What do you think, Douglas? And I'll come to you, Antoinette.
I might push back on that. I think people know that there's a subway. The problem is two things. It's not very reliable. And it's sometimes not safe for everyone. So if you can't have people that go at 11 at night and ride it by themselves, then people are not going to go even if you make it for free. So I would start with making it safe, making it free, but also making it reliable. Like people don't take the bus because you can't, well, unless you can't have other choices. If you could afford a car, you're not going to take the bus because it's not consistent at scheduled time. The bus is always late. And until that gets fixed, that's when you can depend on it. And that's how that would increase ridership naturally.
Thank you, Douglas. So I'll give you all about 30 seconds. Antoinette, did you have something to say?
Actually, sorry, but Rose, I think, raised her hand first.
Oh, sorry. Rose, go ahead. Real quick answers though. Sorry, we want to keep on.
I would just give some incentives to people, whoever is willing to use their buses. I will give them free parking, couple of tickets, like they can park wherever they have to pay for a couple of times free if they use public transit. Thank you.
Thank you. And Antoinette, you were next.
One of the things that would make it so that people know what's around them is that the locations that they visit have Metro signs or station information in their businesses, right? So if you can take the Metro to Pantages, and if Pantages had a thing on it that said, you can take these transit places to and from here, I know that I can get to my church that's in Koreatown from where I live because it's off of a Metro station, right? So if the places that you go regularly or even had a thing, I'm close to this station, I'm close to that station, that's how activists do it. We don't want to take the cars downtown. When you put a event out, you say, hey, I'm close to this Metro station, and then you know that you can get to it.
Thank you. And Marco, 30 seconds, please.
Thanks. I think some of the things that we can prioritize is making sure that we have actual first and last mile transit systems set up. I think it's in Santa Monica where they have this electric shuttle that will take you from a location to the bus stop. And so how can we utilize things like that, make sure that the paths being walked look beautiful, and make sure that while we push to have free transit, we partner with big events, right? Like the Dodgers just won the World Series. Great. Everyone rides the Metro free today up until we have free transit for all.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Next question. And we will start with Rose. The Valley Generating Station has had a history of unreported gas leaks. What are your thoughts about the Valley Generating Station? And then the second part of this question is, what other environmental justice issues have you identified in CD6 and how would you address them?
So regarding the leak, honestly, I don't have any specific and deep knowledge to answer the question. But regarding the environmental issues, of course, there is a major issue in Los Angeles City, not also in my district. We have to push for green infrastructure, and we have to push for alternative ways of public transit, first of all. And another issue that is a serious problem in the district is the issue related to the Van Nuys Airport. So a lot of people have been reaching my office lately regarding the Van Nuys Airport, what can be done regarding it. I think the major thing that we have to do, we have to step by step start building green infrastructure for more pushing on alternative ways of energy usage.
Okay, thank you. Isaac, what are your thoughts about the Valley Generating Station, and what other EJ issues have you identified in CD6, and how would you address them?
So the leaks at the Valley Generating Station is unacceptable. We know that's not good for anyone. And to be totally honest, I would need to do a lot more homework and surround myself with the people closest to the problem and experts in the matter to figure out what the best, most efficient way to go about dealing with that. Within regards to our district, we have a lot of certain issues, whether that's planting trees, especially around our youth and the schools. We know that shade cover and tree canopy really affects in a positive way the development of our youth. And the Van Nuys Airport has been something very, very close to me. It's been a priority since day one. If you go to Lake Balboa, you'll smell it. My parents, as I mentioned, their business, California Water Conservation Company, was actually in the Van Nuys Airport Business Park. So I remember it wasn't always like that. I remember going to the air shows. There weren't so many private jets. This is something that we need to close the loopholes on charter flights and get
Thanks,
justice
Isaac.
for the people who live there.
Thank you. Imelda.
Imelda, you're muted. Sorry, you were.
Alrighty, so I want to talk about 4 things. So for DWP, we need to hold them accountable. We have to remember that this is a community that has historically been affected by the cumulative impacts of multiple land use decisions that have increased the air quality out here to be one of the worst in Los Angeles. So we have to hold DWP accountable. For water, we need to hurry up and hold the county accountable to build the Roy Shaw Water Park. And we also need to make sure that our planning department is making sure that cleanup, green up is being enforced and that they're not giving people the ability to sway away from it. And if you look at my website from the very beginning, I've been talking about the importance of increasing tree canopy given the heat impact out here. And when it comes to the airport, Van Nuys Airport is in the district, but we also have Whiteman and Burbank. We need to find a way to industry-wide push airplanes to start to invest in green technology and quieter airplanes.
Thank you. Marco.
Could
What are
repeat
your
the question?
thoughts? I'm sorry, don't start it yet, just Lisa. I just want to restate the question for everybody one more time. What are your thoughts about the Valley Generating Station, and what other EJ issues have you identified specifically in CD6, and how would you address them?
Yeah, so it's I think we're all pretty much, it's a consensus, right? The Valley Generating Station has had some leaks, and the fact that either it doesn't get reported or the fact that it's happening in our communities in general is not okay. We can't be exposing these typically marginalized communities to further environmental racism and the issues that happen with this. We already have a high congestion of traffic, single occupancy vehicle traffic, as I mentioned, and a big portion of this is because folks have to take their cars to go to work, right? So we're already exposing them to these carbon emissions. In addition to that, some of the environmental justice issues I would highlight is, the Superfund, as it's been mentioned already. We need to clean that out. We need to recharge it, and we need to be water independent. We also have to push for tree canopy. Yes, the 15% tree canopy equity across the city council district is something that's been super highlighted, and we have to push for that, right? Starting with things like buses and benches due to our extreme heat, and the layout of the Sepulveda Basin after the Olympics.
Thanks, Marco. Sorry, thanks. Antoinette.
Yeah, many of the things that have been mentioned are definitely on my radar. The gas plant needs to be shut down. I really wish it was just a small leak, but leaking for 2 years and then not telling the residents and causing birth defects, headaches, nosebleeds. These are really, really intense things for your community to deal with when your council district doesn't want to even tell you about it. Other things that we could be doing that are big environmental justice pieces are maybe capping the landfill and talking to scientists and figuring out how we can do that equitably, because that is also methane leaking into Sun Valley. The pollution from cars, the airport pollution of the 1%, the Tujunga spreading grounds, which someone told me that you should plant banana trees because banana trees help get toxins out of the ground, and you can still eat the bananas. Isn't that wonderful? The tree canopy, so that like, all of this is to say that we are a sacrifice zone. There are way more environmental justice concerns in Sun Valley, specifically in CD6 alone, than almost any other part of the city.
Thank you, Antoinette. And Douglas.
Yeah, I mean, this hurts me personally. I live like a block away from that Valley generating station, and I would have that smell in my house. And obviously we knew there was a leak going on, and it took years for the city finally to admit. And I mean, just to give you a sense, when the leak happened and our predecessor, I mean, she said, okay, we're going to remove the 4 smokestacks that are decommissioned. So it's like, it's a superficial change. So that's actually one thing I want to advocate. I want to make deep, meaningful change. So I looked at it more, I was a math major in college, and I looked at it more about how do you tackle this? The Valley generating station generates 15,000 gigawatt hours of electricity. Obviously, if I wanted to shut it down tomorrow, it wouldn't be feasible because the city depends on this energy. But that would take 45,000 acres of solar to replace what the Valley generation stage, or 7 square miles, which we don't have the space. But we have to find a way and make our city accountable. And how are we going to replace that energy with solar, wind, and other natural renewable energies? And that would be one of my first priorities.
Thank you, Douglas. Okay, next question, starting with Isaac. Please tell us how you view the future of the Sepulveda Basin Wildlife Reserve and what are the most important issues to ensure a successful restoration.
Growing up, I used to go to the Sepulveda Basin all the time. I've said this before, but my dad used to always take me to the RC airfield. I cherish it. My wife and I take our dog there maybe once every other week. This is one of the actual only attractions in all of CD6 that people from all over the city come to over the weekends on a nice day. I think we need to do all that we can to not only preserve, but beautify, especially the wildlife fields with this, rare birds that migrate here. Where else will they go? I think this is a rare situation, and a lot of people do not care about it enough. And we need to protect it. We need to beautify and maintain the Sepulveda Basin to our best ability and not sacrifice it all, because it's only going to be more rare and more rare as our city and our district become more populated and more, just industrialized in general.
Okay, thank you. Imelda, how do you view the future of the Sepulveda Basin Wildlife Reserve, and what are the most important issues to ensure a successful restoration? You're muted.
In order to ensure that we restore the wildlife is to make sure that we are very intentional about following the process, right? We have to have a council office that is there and consistently checking on the progress. One of the things that I know that I really want to see for the Sepulveda Basin is that we can strike a balance where we engage in environmental sustainability, and but at the same time, as Los Angeles continues to increase in its population and we continue to increase density, we have to remember that a lot of our constituents don't have a backyard. And because this is one of the few places for green space, we have to be able to strike a balance where we can also build recreation that isn't harmful to the Sepulveda Basin and its wildlife, because there is a constituency that wants to be able to enjoy it for the greenery and as their backyards. And a lot of animal lovers have told me, take care of that dog park. So I will.
Thank you. Marco.
Yeah, so some of the things that we need to push on is we know the basin and the surrounding area is always flooded. So we need to make sure that as we push for this, we need to decrease the flood that happens in there and find more natural ways to capture the water and recharge our basins. Some of that can include having things like more porous concrete along the city of Los Angeles. Ideally, I would love to have more porous concrete along the LA River, especially in that stretch of land that we have right there. I'd like to find ways to, because it is a recreational area, right? It's where I went to go train when I was running for my half marathon. We need to find ways that we ensure there's walkability and different bike paths. And so using the waterway to be a super bike pathway is one idea. And we need to make sure that just in general, we have more nature-based solutions to address this and not short-term solutions just because we're going to be having the Olympics in a few years.
Okay, thanks. Antoinette.
Yeah, I moved recently and I moved across the street from the Sepulveda Basin because I love being able to get to it as easy as possible. And so for me, as a person who doesn't have personal outside space, like Imelda was talking about, it is a third space to hang out and be with your family and ride your bike. And I mean, did you know that you could kayak there? I go kayaking there in the summer. It's the kind of thing where many of us want to be able to take part in this. And Marco is right, it floods. You close down the streets, you can't get through. And so whatever we do to it should not in any way be housing or stadiums or things that are flooding. I mean, the whole point of this part of the river basin is to be a dam. And so we need to make it so that the water that is held there is part of our renewable energy system and part of the groundwater system, and making it so that not only does it stop the city part of our neighborhood from flooding, but that it goes back into our groundwater so that we can use it later.
Okay, Douglas, thank you.
So yeah, I have a lot of amazing memories as a child from the Sepulveda Basin, although I always called it Parque Balboa, and I still call it to this day. And yeah, I think if you look at the basin itself, I mean, we have, for me, the Sepulveda Basin is like the Griffith part of the valley. And, we have this open space that has so much potential. And obviously with the Olympics coming in 2028, which again, they're going to use that. I want to make sure that we use federal and state funding, because the Olympics will allow us to reimagine the entire space. I mean, start from scratch and create real life lasting impacts that can just completely change the basin and how we treat it. I mean, just my personal opinion as a politician, just as a person, I would like for part of the basin to have some Valola wetlands in the valley. And like, we have the potential to build them. So when there's a will, there's a way.
Thank you. And Rose.
It is very important, while increasing recreational opportunities for long-term use, to preserve and enhance wildlife. And also, why not work with different organizations like Army Corps, LA City, LA County, and different, like, to take a hub to preserve this very important spot for the community, and also take into consideration that, as many candidates have already mentioned, Olympics is coming. We have to really be careful with this, not to go over and not to endanger some. We have already endangered species there, to maintain the wildlife, because it's very important for the community.
I have a follow-up question thank you, Rose. I have a follow-up question for anybody who would care to give it 30 seconds. What does nature-based solutions mean to you? What does it mean to have nature-based solutions in a floodplain, in a place that needs to be restored? Anybody?
Imelda's raising her hand.
Imelda, thank you.
But you're muted, Imelda.
To me, nature-based restoration would be that we actually take the time to study what are the native plants and native animals to the region, and how do we make the mitigations to preserve and bring back the wildlife, and make sure that they are comfortable during their breeding season, and their that they have the proper foods that help them be helpful. I mean, to live productive, like happy lives in the basin. But
Thank
more
you, Imelda. Sorry.
native plants.
Thank you. Marco.
Sorry, I double tapped. I mentioned a little bit earlier, but I think having some solutions to kind of recharge our basin, having more porous concrete along the way, having wetlands. Thank you, Douglas, for highlighting that specifically, but we need to find ways that we reduce the flood risk and just have it be a more natural part of our society. And I think one of the things that's so keen to the Sepulveda Basin is that it is this big biodiverse thing, right? We have a flock of birds that migrate every year to the basin.
Thank you. Thanks, Marco.
Hey, stop it.
Okay, moving on.
Antoinette is raising her hand, Kathy.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry, Antoinette.
Just quickly, part of it might be removing concrete and putting back like grass and rock fixtures so that it actually can get back into the groundwater. Some of it needs to be funding and money so that we can turn the basin back into a more porous space, not just with concrete, but with soil, so that we can, the concrete is what makes the flooding, right? And so for me, part of that is reestablishing a nature-based area.
Thank you.
A lot of
Thank you.
concrete is.
Thank you, Antoinette. Okay, let me make sure I know where we are. We are beginning with Imelda.
Hello?
Yes, Imelda. With the lack, this is another long question. With the lack of trust in our government leaders, especially in the city council, how are you going to build trust when it comes to reimagining the transit-oriented communities with density, mobility, and light rail along Van Nuys Boulevard and other neighborhoods? What do you think are the most important issues raised by residents, and how do you plan to address them?
Well, you know, I didn't need running for office to let me know that the most important thing to our community includes addressing the unsheltered community, addressing public safety, and bringing in good jobs, right? So, and also I am a community organizer, and I have been talking about this from the very beginning. We need to make sure that we are leaders that are accessible and engaging. One of the things that I would like to do to address those top 3 things that I mentioned, but I do have a platform of 7 things, with number 4 being the built environment, 3 are parks, and then it's libraries. And then I talk about developing youth summer-based jobs. We need to allow people to know that their leaders are accessible. So I plan and I will build community councils, one specifically for business, one for the nonprofit, one for the environmental groups, and another one for working families and the LGBT community, so that people can come and talk to me about what are the sort of things they would like for me to work on at City Hall. To me, that's how you build trust.
Thank you, Imelda. Thank you. Marco.
So, sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah.
Apologies. I thought I had it and I lost it.
It's a long one. Thank you. With the lack of trust in our government leaders, especially in city council, how are you going to build trust when it comes to reimagining the transit-oriented communities with density, mobility, and light rail along Van Nuys Boulevard and other neighborhoods? And what do you think are the most important issues raised by residents, and how do you plan on addressing them?
So I think I'll start in reverse. I think some of the issues that are raised is, there's a lot of single family home zoning in this district, right? And some of the difficulties is that folks don't want to see these tall Manhattan style buildings along their streets and so on and so forth. I think some of the things we could do is obviously have the space for a community to be there. Me, myself, as the council member, being there, being present, and actually listening to you as constituents. But I'm all in for transit-oriented community developments and finding ways to have some sort of tapered density structure. I've talked about having transit, higher transit, right, along the corridor of the transit corridors that we're developing. But then as we start to kind of taper into the single-family home zones that are located in Arleta, Sun Valley, Lake Balboa, so on, how can we have density, but not just in height, but in width, right? How can we incentivize more ADUs, more duplexes, triplexes? There's this amazing motion in the state, yes in God's backyard. How can we push for smarter ways to do this?
Thank you. Okay, Antoinette, would you like me to repeat?
Yes.
Okay.
I think this is 3 questions, really.
It's a long one, yeah. With the lack of trust in our government leaders, especially in the city council, how are you going to build trust when it comes to reimagining the transit-oriented communities, the TOC, with density, mobility, and light rail along Van Nuys Boulevard and other neighborhoods? What do you think are the most important issues raised by residents, and how do you plan to address them?
Okay, I'll also take this in reverse because I think that the most important issue that people are raising, at least as we're walking from neighborhood to neighborhood and as I'm talking to people that I know, is homelessness. And so part of that, with the background in homelessness that I have, is that we don't have enough services, and making sure that we provide more services for people so they can get off the street would be the very first step. You can't actually get into shelter if you don't talk to a caseworker. There's no caseworkers, then you languish on the streets. The other part with the transit piece, though, is one, being a model of someone who rides transit and letting people know that it is safe, that the fears that people have are not as founded as they might think they are, that transit is safe. Transit is not as reliable. So then pushing for Metro to get back to those pre-COVID transit numbers, and even maybe the pre-2012 transit numbers where we had more buses and trains running regularly. It's kind of hard to want to put your schedule around something when you don't think a train or a bus is going to come within an hour. So those are the 2 things.
Thank you. Douglas.
I mean, the first 10, and I could go on for hours, but I mean, I've said it. City Hall is a mess. It's a modern day Tammany Hall, but I'll skip that thing. I want to talk more about my alma mater, the UCLA transportation studies. So they noticed that while we invest in huge transit developments, such as the Sepulveda East Valley Corridor, we rarely invest in the auxiliary transits like protected bike paths or reliable buses that feed into those bus stations to make that the union feasible. So actually, that's one thing I want to work on, because the park and ride model is outdated. And if we rely that, like if we build a monorail, that's what we're going to have. And that doesn't make any sense. But actually, one thing I will pride myself is I actually want to build coalitions. I've actually talked to NIMBYs and YIMBYs, and they both agree that having affordable mass transit in like places like Panorama City or Van Nuys that are right now currently abandoned does make sense, and building density there makes sense. So actually, that would be my low-hanging fruit, and I will implement that as fast as possible.
Thank you. And Rose.
Thank you. Regarding the trust, especially for transit-dependent communities, I think we need somebody in office who will unite economic communities within District 6. So building, I myself, I have been like using public transit for 2-3 years when I came here, and I do it now randomly. So as a person who still uses public transportation, I would push for safety and accessibility for public transit. And also we need to build hubs around the dense parts of the public transportation, public transit, so that people are able not only to freely access the spots and get connected within the community, but also they feel safe, and also they feel themselves engaged on the vibe of the community.
Thank you. Isaac.
I think some of us have mentioned it as well, and I've been trying to take public transportation more lately, but recently, I think last week, I tried to take the bus and just didn't come, like many of us has mentioned, and I was more than 30 minutes late. And that really turns me off to public transportation. So one way to really regain the trust of our community so that they, are more inclined to use public transportation is to do things like have a more reliable bus schedule. That might mean more buses or a bus lane where buses can travel more freely. But in terms of regaining the trust, just like in anything in life, that comes down to really communication and also following through on your promises. We need to get the things that we promise right and to do it with full force, with transparency, and being totally honest about what's going on. I mean, if you're not going to fulfill it, tell people, give them updates. And we need to go from there to regain the trust of our community.
Okay, thank you. Marco. I think you are ready. Yes, you are taking this question now. Okay. Illegal fireworks and street racing are major issues in parts of CD6 with regard to both public safety and environmental protection. Our community has requested the police and the city officials to act on this issue, but no progress has been made. How would you work with LAPD to solve these problems?
So I think, as I've talked about public safety, I've talked about public safety as a network. And while I think LAPD has a role, obviously, in this network, I think we need to expand what that means, right? Street racing, my parents live off of White Oak and Victory. That is a major area for street racing, if y'all are familiar. Yesterday, as I was in Panorama City, there was a street where folks were kind of walking me by, and they were saying, look, these cars are always here. There's a stop sign 50 yards down, and yet they still don't listen. And so we need to find ways to have more streets in our society that have reduced speeds, that have things like speed humps and speed dips, and finding ways to have more things like roundabouts, right? We need to make our community safer for our pedestrians more than anything. And that expands outside of just looking at LAPD in that role. As far as fireworks go, that is also a major thing. Next to my parents is Reseda Park, and there's always fireworks there every 4th of July. While it might look cool, we know that it can be dangerous, and we know that it also releases a lot of emissions into our.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Antoinette.
Yes. So if you've read anything about me in the news lately, you'll probably know that I'm not one to bring more police into it. And so for me, some of the things that Marco have mentioned, which is changing the streets themselves, and so it's much more difficult to do street racing, is something I'm completely on board for. I also think that the local community organizations are the kinds of people that can get more in the know with what's going on, and I don't want to say convince, but have an easier time with getting people to slow down or not have fireworks. I mean, I think local organizations much better than LAPD is going to be a great way to connect with folks, because LAPD is going to bring in more enforcement and more arrest instead of actually trying to solve the problem itself.
Thank you. Douglas.
Yeah, obviously, as a father of small children, I'm tired of how like some people drive, and especially near parks and schools. So one of the things is like near every park and every school, I want to have triple the funding for street bumps. But I actually want to take a page from our neighbor in City 7. Certain intersections where they do a lot of donuts, they've actually installed these yellow barriers that they look like cones, but they're more permanently affixed to the ground. I actually will look into installing those type of cones into major intersections. As someone who just recently lived in the Bay Area, I can tell you I don't miss that part of street life where people do car shows. And then lastly, in terms of fireworks, obviously, we don't have lax enforcement of our rules, and that's a big problem. And I mean, you can come in any street on 4th of July and you'll see the show. So I think just educating the people of how the danger of wildfires when it comes to fireworks is a good start.
Thank you. Rose.
For me, everything starts with education. So we have to educate people how to stay away from both of the issues that you were talking about. So I would definitely go ahead and reshape some of the streets in the valley. Yes, adding bumps, countdown timers, and I would definitely engage the community in reporting those kind of things. By connecting the community with the police department so that people can report both racing and fireworks, but definitely I would be against criminalizing them.
Thank you. Isaac.
In regards to fireworks, I know it's all over LA, but if you
Wait,
live in
sorry. Okay, go ahead.
all good. If you live in CD6, you know that our neighborhoods are extremely festive. You can hear the dogs barking. It's a real problem. I'm not one to, call the police on anybody doing that. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, there's so many people on our block who do get angry about it. There's also half of our block who's shooting them up into the sky. I think we need to really address the root cause as well and try to crack down on the people who are selling these fireworks, that they're not supposed to be selling them here, or even in different states, who are bringing them into our state and our neighborhoods. We need to address that. In terms of the street racing, I live really close to Sherman Way, Sepulveda. You can hear it going on all the time. We need more traffic calming measures, whether, again, that's highlighting where there is a pedestrian walkway so that it's more evident to drivers, whether that could be a raised hump or that's also painted a little differently. So people really prioritize people walking and are more aware of that, as well as slowing down.
Thank you. And Imelda.
So I'm going to start with fireworks and then street racing. So fireworks, people love them. People are going to keep driving out as far as they have to into the state of Arizona to make it happen. We love to be festive on 4th of July and other holidays. However, my observation is that people started to increase buying illegal fireworks and hosting them out of their backyards when the city of Los Angeles stopped hosting big public 4th of July events. What I would like to do is bring back public events at places like a park or a football field in one of the high schools so that people can come and enjoy fireworks in a safe place and don't go out to other parts of Los Angeles to be able to buy it and then celebrate on their own terms. In terms of street racing, the fire department doesn't like speed bumps because it reduces their ability to get there on time. So what I think we need to do is, this goes back to why I believe in investing in youth. Youth are racing because they're bored. We need to give them productive activities to engage in so that they don't do things like street racing and endanger their lives. And we got to work with our senior leads officers to identify where it's happening so that it can stop.
Okay. Thank you. I believe, did everybody have a chance to answer that question? I think so. So we are going to wrap it up here with some closing remarks, and you will each have 30 seconds. And let's start with Antoinette.
Well, thank you all so much for having me and allowing me to voice my opinions and values and concerns. I think that a lot of these questions come down to what's your value system. And for me, my value system is to care about the people that are at the very bottom and to make sure that those people are heard and that those people get the care that they need. And so as a person running for city council, this is an opportunity for me to use my skills, my knowledge, all of the things that I've been working up to until now to help everyone else. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Douglas.
So again, I think the fact that this is a special election and we have a diverse set of candidates, and it gives us the opportunity for us to compare what the differences are and how we're different, how we're the same, and how we get to accomplish. So I think we need to, I guess, go back to the old days where, like, people, regular average Joe can run for office. And so again, one thing I say is I'm a father, not a politician, and that's what I want to better my community, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Rose.
For me, as I said, me myself, as a person who lives in the district, would love to see somebody who will bring together all the economic communities, and I'd be happy to do the person to provide similar and same opportunities for everybody by connecting the system within, by better connecting the government with the community, and most of all, engaging community in whatever is going on, as I said, inside the city hall, by listening to the people living in the city six, listening to their concerns and taking care of everything, started from tinier things that may.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you. Sorry. Isaac.
As a business owner who's running for the first time, it's been a wild adventure. It's been so motivating. It's been amazing to see who's joined our team. We have well over 70 volunteers at this point. We're a grassroots clean money campaign. I want to bring I haven't run in the same political circles my entire career. I want to bring a real perspective, a can-do attitude, and really get things done. I have no further ambition to really help all of my neighbors and help all people in our district improve their quality of life.
Thank you, Isaac. Imelda.
I just want to emphasize that nobody can do anything alone. We need to engage in partnerships. And I'm the only candidate that has actually earned the endorsement of our next door neighbor, Monica Rodriguez, the overlapping congressional member, Tony Cardenas, and 3 school board members who trust me as an intergovernmental candidate that is going to help the school board members build our next workforce. But more than anything, someone that has worked for the city. I've worked for the county and some of the most well-respected nonprofits, and I'm going to bring that perspective to take on our most difficult issues in the region.
Thank you. Marco.
Thank you all for having us. This has been an amazing forum talking about sustainability, and I'm so happy we had the chance. The reality stands that we have this opportunity because of a lack of government transparency. And so I'm running to change that and to uplift the community's voices. I've always done. I super believe in overhauling our lobbying ordinance that we have and finding more creative ways to uplift the community. And I hope that you join me and folks like the Los Angeles League of Conservation Voters, the Democratic Party of the San Fernando Valley, Senator Caroline Menjivar, and the LA Times in endorsing my campaign.
Thank you. Thank you all, everybody. Great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was wonderful. And once again, thank you for running. And I wish all of you, I'm so excited that all of you have taken this on. And I wish all of you luck, and I hope we all work with each other going forward in one capacity or another. And for those of you who are staying with us, we're going to try to end early tonight because it is sort of a weird night, but we'll do reports, committee reports, and give everybody who wants to stay an opportunity to make an announcement. And then we will move on. Let's see, let me share the advocacy committee slides and I will, where is it? There it is. I will talk about that one. If it's coming, is it loading? Okay, there it goes. So we're not doing well on the wildlife ordinance. We're going to, I think we're going to start reaching out to Councilmember Rahman's office. And actually that's an issue that does affect CD6 because there's a larger, after this pilot project happens, there's this Rim of the Valley thing that we want to do that will really have really positive impacts on the whole valley. But the problem is, this effort started in 2014 and we still don't have a gosh darn ordinance. So we have a lot more work to do. Sepulveda Basin, this is on my plate right now. I think in April, we will probably bring this issue to you folks for a vote. We'll be talking about ways to move this forward. And you can look up that council file. And we do have a lot about the Sepulveda Basin on our website under advocacy. Also on my plate, we're going to have a vote when I get together about submitting something, asking for flexibility for neighborhood councils that you can do hybrid or virtual or in person or what you want to do. Also, we've been talking a lot about charter reform, so there's a lot more to come on that. You can get involved and you can stay tuned. I think maybe it was Douglas Sierra, I think, mentioned an article about Kevin De Leon in the LA Times that Jamie York shared with me. Personally, I think this is great news because I just really want him to go. So I appreciate that. I really appreciate the LA Times for doing the work to dig in and I think we'll learn more because I don't see right now, I do not see another avenue to remove him. I mean, I don't know what's going on with the recall effort, but I know that that's not coming from organizations that are really aligned with ours. We've had a couple really interesting conversations about with Abundant Housing LA, and we found out like where we don't necessarily see eye to eye and where we do see eye to eye and how we can, learn from each other. So I think those have been productive, sort of, talking about the NIMBYs and the YIMBYs. I think we had both in those virtual rooms, and I think that was good. Our next meeting is April 2nd, and Jamie York, who I just mentioned, who's really the woman behind the effort to revise the municipal lobbying ordinance, which really came out of some really bad behavior on the part of some lobbyists at neighborhood council meetings. She will come, sorry, that was, I don't know where that sentence went, but I'm trying to say that she will be coming to our meeting on the 2nd and speaking about that, and we'll figure out if we're gonna, as an alliance, take a position on that. So, and everybody, any stakeholder in LA is welcome to join us, and those meetings are, you know, I think they're usually good. Muriel, transportation, take it away. Muriel, are you there? Uh-oh. Is anybody from the transportation committee there? Okay, what I will say is we are hoping to have a vote on a car share initiative, but we're not hearing from Get Around, who's the car sharing company we've been working with on this effort. So we might need to go back to the drawing board. Muriel, are you there? Okay, so that's I'll just share that. Oh, and then Metro did have this really interesting, I went, and actually Phil went from our transportation committee to a really good event that Metro hosted. I think it was this past week. Yeah, this past Wednesday. That was kind of connected to the conversation we're having tonight. Ways to engage people. They really are looking for ways to engage. Oh gosh, I'm hearing an echo. I think that might, I'll try to figure that out. Ways to engage. Okay, why is that happening? If my co-host can start muting people, that would be great. Oh, Muriel, you're there. Do you want to talk about transportation?
Yeah.
I talked about the car sharing, and I was talking about the Metro Visionary Seed Fund. I was having an echo, but I'll just share that they're interested in how we can engage with communities and transit operators to figure out how to get more folks on transit. So you could talk about the first 4 bullet points if you wanted.
Okay. Okay. Well, LCI updates. What was supposed to? There was some slight LCI updates. We did a little conversation about the Westwood Connection Coalition and whether or not to vote for adding their logo to our website, but we need to get more information from Michael Schneider. Westwood Connection is just basically a program to connect. There being a heavy rail line that goes through UCLA, in addition to like the purple line extension. So we're still waiting on more information. We talked a little bit about the street widening discussion. Oh, no, we didn't. I'm sorry. I was supposed to, oh, goodness gracious. Leonel actually talked about the Ciclavia. He is one of the ambassadors. Ciclavia from Pico to Mid-City is going on April 16th. We had a brief conversation about the bus rapid transit in relation to the Flow Boulevard. And yeah, as Lisa said, we talked a little bit about the Metro Visionary Seed Fund and a little bit about the citywide car share initiative, and we're still working on that.
Okay, thank you, Muriel. Trees, Charles, are you doing this one?
I had not planned to do that one.
So anyway, I had, but I guess you didn't know that.
Yeah. No, well, I can just tell you very briefly. Please come to the trees meeting on the 25th. I personally will be out of town and not available to attend, but I know Joanne's been working very hard on a cool demonstration and a cool presentation and on the city tree inventory and how to access it and how it can be very useful in determining canopy in certain areas and species that are used in certain areas and the need for species that support biodiversity as well. So that is on March 25th. 1:30 p.m. and you can join our email list at trees@ncsa.la.
Okay, thank you. And energy, HA, are you there? I think you are.
Yes, I am. So starting with the Murphy drill site, no major update except now there's a little bit of time for us to draft the letter. Based on internal updates, not much movement on the Vista Hermosa Sunrise movement. Our next step is to attend one of the, I guess, basically a tour and walkthrough of the block. Regarding the induction stoves program, I sent an email to Christina Holland at LADWP. She is on vacation as of right now, so hoping to hear back next week. Not much change in Scattergood, and still haven't received a response on the discussion of study findings. Not sure if I will get anything back, but just as a reminder, our meetings are at 7 p.m. every third Thursday of the month.
Okay, great. Thank you.